Daniel Schmachtenberger is on the YouTube, shedding wisdom like a virulent virus, or more like creating a microbiome of wisdom, or whatever. He's just a wise guy. But the thing is, I think like Daniel, and I have for a long time, before I knew Daniel existed. I've been reading around the world for a while. But he's so eloquent, and he has a memory like a steel trap. So there you go. The man is going to just reap wisdom from this Daniel Schmucktenberger.
There's a meta question that is actually a fascinating question I want to address first, which is how can someone take anyone else's insights and not get stuck on the insight, but inquire into what gave them that insight?
Wow, see? I was talking about that yesterday before I saw this video, but not as eloquently. And Schmucktenberger has a memory like a steel trap. He remembers everything he's read. He knows the authors' names, I always forget. And he synthesizes everything and cross-references them in conversation so well. Makes total sense to me. It boggles my mind that some of my friends don't get Daniel Schmucktenberger. Maybe because they haven't thought like that much, and they think he's a elitist, smug intellectual who's trying to confuse them with big words and ideas. Even though to me it's all just common sense kind of stuff. If you examine yourself, your thinking, on a regular basis, and if you're absolutely so curious that you can't stop questioning, you read something, you go, wow, that sounds reasonable, I like that, I'll delve into that for a while, see if I can figure it out, articulate it myself, internalize it, comprehend it, and so on and so forth. And then, a little while later, you run into something else and you go, wow, that's freaking fascinating. That guy disagrees with that guy I just read, but he's got some points. That's interesting. Different point of view, different perspective on it. And so, you're like, I think I'll go down that road for a while. I'm not afraid. I thought I knew something, but I don't know it that well. I've got to fill in some gaps. And if that's exciting to you, wow. So what am I doing? I'm going to video my new shortcut to Obidush. Just to spend a great deal of time uploading and data onto a hard drive and re-examining it, editing it. What are you gonna do when you're retired and want to do like Schmucktenberger? Sorry, buddy, I'm making fun of your name. It's just because I'm not confident I can pronounce Schmucktenberger correctly. Nah, I like it. I like German sounding words. So anyway, you know, you're making an effort at trying to improve yourself and things, which is why you critique society and hopefully critique yourself and understand that your prior understanding is constantly being updated with new information and knowledge if you're curious enough to delve into it. So this road goes up and you can go straight along and through many villages. Oh, I didn't even turn on the gas, which is going to be interesting. And you can follow this road all the way around and get to Obidos, but it's going to take a long time. And so I was always thinking, there's this ridge, and why can't I just go from this ridge down the valley up to the next ridge and then over to Obidos? Why? Why? Well, the answer is because I never found that road that does that. Because I was mapping, hello, hola, oops, I scared the shy child. Hola, crianzas, crianza. Anyway, yeah, I mapped out the region on my bicycle using myself as the mapping tool, my brain, my sense of direction, my eyes. And I didn't use Google Maps. And I always go down different roads. I haven't been down that road yet, so let's go down that road and see what happens. Like I did yesterday. And then I get lost and I learn from getting lost. And I've been doing that my whole life because I traveled as a child and as a teenager and young adult. And I didn't mind getting lost. I felt the novelty of it to be exciting. And so going to a new place was always great. And when I was younger, I'd do things like grab a friend and say, get your passport, we're going to Peru. And that's it. Spontaneously go to Peru or move to Japan. What are you going to do in Japan? I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. And I wasn't afraid to do that at all. And so I've had an unusual life, which I think has made me more curious, you know, nature, nurture, how much of it is genetic. So you get lost and you refine your ability to map the world. In a city, you just go down different roads. If you're commuting by train, you take a different pathway back to your apartment every time. And eventually, your internal human GPS becomes really good, acute, sharp, accurate, sensitive. Now I sound like a COVID-19 test. Sensitivity, accuracy. So The turnoff point is the schoolhouse, not far, on a bicycle. Nothing is ever far. Imagine if the Roman legions had bicycles. We'd be living in a really different world. We'd be living in a Roman world, for sure. Maybe, maybe not. Because systems do tend to self-terminate. You know, you have to have this incredible hunger for development, personal development, evolution. It has to be kind of inculcated or indoctrinated. But it has to be injected into the whole core values of a community. Like Daniel was talking about, the reason why you have these schools and churches and so on, because you have a group of people practicing the same kinds of things and bouncing ideas off of one another, arguing, refining, exploring. And I know that the phrase is annoying, in community with people. It annoys me only because I've heard it for so many years, two decades, in the consulting business. Okay, this is the schoolhouse. Praise, praise. I'm going to go up a little bit further, turn around by this church, a little chapel, sorry. It's there because there's a graveyard down below. Yeah, so consultant speak, you know, it's annoying. You got to make up terminology so that you can sound novel when you're just talking about something people talked about thousands of years ago and is intuitively commonsensical. How's that for some terminology? How's that for a turn of a phrase? Intuitively commonsensical. And you just use it over and over again until it sounds really profound, you know? And then people refer to you as, you know, you're intuitively commonsensical. And it's like, whoa, dude, that's pretty good flip there, man. Wow, yeah, I can dig it. Profound. When it's actually not profound, it's just another turn of a phrase. But anyway, in relationship, it's important. Some of these phrases and terms are important. They help to elevate understanding, and they help us frame the world. See, that's another one of these things, framing. Frame the world in a new way. Gain perspective, and so on. I'll shut off this. I can put some pretty pictures with my other camera to this voiceover if the wind sound isn't too bad. So the consultant speak is good. The other thing that Daniel does so well, and Jamie, Wheel, and Jordan, and all these really smart guys, is they remember their train of thought and they get back to it after doing like 2 pages of explanation of introduction to an idea or a concept or something people are thinking about. They go, okay, now that I've done that preamble, that introduction to that concept that fleshes out the whole picture that we're trying to understand here, I'll get back to the money part of it, or whatever other part, geopolitics or existential risk, or whether or not we're going to ever, panacea technologies will save the world, or a technocratic elite is taking over the planet, or some major big question like that. Yeah, it's funny. And they just get back, okay, I've done that preamble, now I'm going to go right back to the crux of the the question that you just asked, because I had to flesh this out before I could be meaningful and coherent and about your question. Damn these guys. I'm getting too old, man. Cognitive decline. I wonder if I had friends like, well, I did, but if I were younger, if I could. But Jim Rutt, a lot of the old geezers keep it together, don't they? Good old Noam Chomsky. I got friends who lived a long time. They were really sharp. I don't know the secret. All right, back on video now. So there's the valley across. Casais Brancos is the village, and that overlooks Obiter's castle town. And this is really a huge shortcut in terms of distance. Oh my God. There's quite a hill here, but I've got a pedal-assisted electric bike, so I can do these hills. There's no way I'd be running around like I do if I didn't have this particular kind of bike. This technology is so great. Okay, I'm off on a tangent. Oh well. And it really should take over the world, you know? People should be on electric bikes, other electric vehicles. There shouldn't be any roads in big cities, dense cities. All the pavement should be moved into either access roads for logistics vehicles and emergency vehicle roads, or public transportation roads, and then the rest of it should all be parks, zoos, playgrounds, schools, whatever. I mean, it's just so sick to waste all that space on roads in a big city with millions of people when we should be getting away from fossil fueled vehicles. It's idiotic. And I've been saying that for decades, making me prescient and very wise. Just kidding. I mean, it's commonsensical. Lots of people have been thinking like that for a long time. But we can't get traction because we ain't money, honey. No money, no honey, right? And that's the whole thing we're dealing with in this world. Cognitive dissonance fueled by cash. The big bucks. Yeah, man, hey, smoking's good for you. So if your doctor says it's bad, you can have your cognitive dissonance moment and say, no, it's good. Fueled by advertising. Getting back to Daniel Schmucktenberger, he also mentioned that we underestimate just how influenced we are by the Facebook and everything else. No kidding. You know, I remember when I was younger, I'd go to a cafe and I could really read a book in a cafe in an afternoon and still watch people and have a conversation with someone. You know, I could focus without falling asleep, and it was a joy. I think people who are too constantly notified and distracted by their devices, oh shit, they're in big trouble. Well, one thing I did was forget my phone, which means Christina can't call me when she gets tired because I don't have a phone. So that means I get to go down this hill and up the hill all over again. I was so busy like sorting out my getting the mic, which I haven't done much, and hooking everything up properly to try to improve the production values of my Cospelong thought journeys, adventures, which nobody hears, but I talk it out into the universe. And I'm my own best audience. That I forgot my phone. So I'll turn off the video. Turn it all the way off. And I will talk to this recorder and go home and get my phone. And I'm going to ride these brakes all the way down because I'm not going to hit 50, 60 kilometers per hour and crash. Because I'm just healed up from my last crash, and not even totally healed up. Healed up enough to get back in the saddle. And ride. You break a wrist, man, that's nasty. It takes a long time to fix that sucker. It's a complicated thing, the wrist and the hand. A lot of bones, a lot of ligaments, tendons. Ooh, you can traumatize the heck out of it. Whoo-wee. And then when you let the bone heal up, everything freezes, man. Your brain forgets you have a hand. You have to go to physiotherapy. Woe is me. I'm the luckiest man alive. So yeah, we're distracted. We have a hard time paying attention to important things. I keep going back to it because I haven't fleshed it out into a nice little soundbitey thing to articulate. But we have tons and tons and tons, petabytes of really good information. And if we have the knowledge to go along with the information, the ability to understand it, analyze it, and do something positive with it, if we had that capacity to do that, it would be wonderful. But we have a lot of info and we don't have the capacity to parse it and use it. It's like having all the materials to build a huge castle, and it's all there, but you just don't know what to do with any of it. And there's nobody around to help you. And if there were experts around to help you build your castle, you would tell them to fuck off because they're not like you, or they don't believe the shit that you believe, or they come from another village, or whatever. So you'd say, fuck it, I'm just gonna leave all that shit to build my castle sitting there rotting. And I'm gonna sit here and, lounge around laying on the bricks and the boards and the rolled up carpets, fingering my ego. Well, everything rots. My brain included, my body included. Whereas if you had the capacity, you could look and say, well, I don't know what those wires are for, but they look like electrical wires to me. And I know a little bit about electrical wires and electricity and that kind of thing. So I have a pretty good idea who I need to get to help me with that. an electrician, and I have a pretty good idea what I want to do with it. I want to hook it up to battery banks, I want to hook it up to lights, electrical outlets, appliances, solar panels, wind turbines, my cow's face and butt, and so on and so forth. So, or the machine that turns my cow's burps and farts into methane to run a generator. Anyway, you get the drift. It's like, whoa, what are those boards for? I think you can make a floor out of that. I know what floors are. I know I can imagine, even though I've never laid a floor, what's involved with doing it and how you might do it. And maybe if I were given enough time and I had the energy and desire, I could figure out how to lay a floor all by myself through trial and error and using my imagination. And then people would say, oh, aren't you clever? And you could say, I did it all myself. I'm a libertarian and I don't need anybody. I did it all myself. Yeah, that's radical. I don't mean it, libertarian people. Go ahead, smoke a bong hit, make love to a prostitute, do whatever you gotta do. It's all good. So, our limbic system and our lizard brain and other parts of our brain get habituated to these things that we do all day that we don't question. And we think, because we're constantly creating a narrative of our identity, and a lot of the building blocks of that identity have nothing to do with us, with who we really are or what we are, have more to do with absorbing other narratives that have a different purpose, to make money, to send us to fight war, to get resources for somebody, whatever, pay your taxes. And our narrative, our own identity narrative, our sense of self, is constructed from stuff that have nothing to do with self. And you don't want to go into the Atman, Brahman, and all that Buddhist stuff and whatever, postmodernist stuff. Never mind all that shit. Just think about it yourself. What went into constructing the narrative? And then, is it going to change? Because I had a totally different shtick when I was 25. I had a beautiful performance piece that I called Stephen. And it was excellent. I had stories, I had my own myths, I had references to important people and things. I had movements, I had handshakes, special kisses, and all kinds of autobiographical dance numbers designed to impress, mostly the opposite sex, but in order to do that, one must also impress one's own sex. Because, baby, you gotta look powerful in the community to get attention. And then a decade later, that shifts a bit. Some of that narrative in my 20s, I've forgotten already. I wish I remembered it. I wrote some of it down, some of it's on film and whatnot. But, you know, it was pretty good shtick, but it changed. Went through another period and another period and another period. There is a through line of action and thought and belief within me, but I don't think it's me. I experience me in different ways now than just the narrative construct that I partially invent and which has been partially engineered and programmed into me by everything one experiences in the world. And if you don't question that, if you're too dogmatically Christian or too comfortably Christian, you know, so, and I do mean that, I mean, you're just so comfortable with your current state of Christianness that you couldn't be bothered to look into any other state of Christianness because it would threaten the one you're hanging on to, even though it might inform, deepen, expand, broadly develop yours, or even give you a greater sense of joy about what you already believe. People are afraid. They're just scared to death, you know. If I look at something else, is it going to threaten what I hold dear right now? And that, to me, is sad. But I don't want to threaten my friends who have, you know, I have friends who haven't changed much in the last 40 years. They seem extremely happy to be where they're at, and I don't find anything inherently wrong with that. And there's no reason for me to spend a whole bunch of energy threatening their belief system or their comfort level with my freaking ideas that aren't even my ideas, right? They're just improvs on ideas that I'm glancing at or rubbing against or bouncing off of. This is the thing about being a human being. And then you die. And that whole process of, you know, maintaining and constructing and reforming and renovating your identity, your sense of self, and the narratives that support it are gone. They're gone, man. But the universe isn't gone, and the stuff of you isn't gone. And, you know, I guess if you wrote a dozen books or made a dozen films or albums or whatever, and several people wrote biographies of you and all that, you have a legacy and that lives on. But most people don't have that, you know. We touch the people we touch, that we share life with, that we do things with. And, you know, that's the real deal. That's why this Game B thing is exciting. If it actually happens that there are proto-Game B communities popping up around the world. And I don't want to get too into that because it's a big subject, but it's not like an eco-village or something. It's not like a reality TV show where you walk across Alaska with 5 other strangers and try to figure things out. It's like, I would imagine here in Portugal, it would be easy because you have these farming villages and communities where people have been helping each other out for their whole life. I'm not saying everybody here is nice and friendly and good. No. This is a place populated by Homo sapiens like every other place. But they live a simpler, more traditional life, despite all the technology that's come along, tourism. And you can still see, farmers are getting older, that's for sure, but you can still see that people help each other and that they work together to do things together. So they do have their civic organizations and projects and whatnot. So if you I would think that you could probably put a Game B community here without thinking too much about having to brand it as a Game B community. You could just start talking about Game B concerns with a group of people down at the athletic organization or wherever. And wherever people gather and chat. And see what the reaction to that was. And if people got it, in particular younger people. I met a really clever young lady yesterday at lunch with her grandmother and her mother, and she speaks 7 languages, and she said, I think I speak English better than Portuguese, even though I'm a native Portuguese speaker. That was impressive. Oh yeah, you think so, do you? But she did speak fluent English. And I found out, because I speak Japanese, I found out she spoke Japanese, and I was like, wow, this girl's something. We were talking about the States, and she was saying, yeah, that's a very out of control, messed up country. And she was talking about it so eloquently and clearly. I'm always amazed here when I talk to young people that they think I'm unusual because I'm an older person and they understand me completely. They get me. And they find that unusual, you know. Whereas in Hong Kong with the banker set and the consulting set and the real estate set and the technology set, there are a lot of people that just think I'm fucking nuts. Why would I bother being concerned about the things I'm concerned about when I could get a motorcycle and drive it with the club? Or I could every Thursday night go out with the hot cuisine crowd and talk about my plans for my ranch in northern Thailand or whatever the heck you do when you social signal with groups like that. They're like, you know, there's nothing you can do about any of these social problems or political problems. So just forget about it, you know, and concentrate on, you know, looking good and being a real man. I don't think I can be a real man without thinking about that. Because in my mind, a real man is more like a real Viking warrior, not a TV one. Or a shaman who is concerned about the macro and the micro on a very deep, profound level, not shallow at all. And where people understand that weaving those big and small things together in community with people is of vital importance. And it's part of the joy of life, the joie de vivre. And in my life, you know, living in Japan and China and India and other places, I noticed, you know, all these cultures have this stuff. So I love science, engineering, technology, but I also love these elements of cultural things that give life profound beauty and depth. And you know, when Jordan Peterson comes along or people like that, I'm like, wow, dude, I've heard all that before from the source or from sources that are older and deeper than yourself. But then again, you have to look at him in the context of the culture wars and academia and all these other things and other generations' concerns and whatnot to get him. But most of it just doesn't click with me at all, because if you want to go pop, you know, I've hung with Joseph Campbell and so on, and all the psychologists of the, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and the cults. No, I'm talking about traditional stuff. When you're in Japan and, you know, wabi-sabi type of things. Doing kenjutsu and aikido and zazen and, you know, understanding bonsai trees and joinery, wood joinery, and the beauty of shoji and the food, the cuisine, the real traditional cuisine, not sushi. Fermented beans, natto and miso and blah, blah, blah. And you find that everywhere you go. You're talking to a lawyer about an insurance biz thing, and you slip into a long, multi-day conversation about the Upanishads and the Vedas. And when you see her incredibly educated, Harvard-educated brain light up when she talks about it, and the whole thing about being a fighter, a lawyer for clerks, just disappears. And she lights up, and it's profound, and you're like, whoa, man, this really is cool. I have read them, but I didn't get them. And then you're going, this is so sad that people don't understand what's there. And the various interpretations of Buddhist canon, you know, whatever you want to call the canon, because there's so many sects. You know, and they all have different ways of looking at things. And if you go through all that and don't attach yourself, which I've always thought was weird, attaching yourself to a Buddhist school, if you're a Buddhist. But I'm a simple-minded man, so non-attachment seems more literal to me. But you have all those different schools, and you're thinking, when I sit with myself in peace and quiet and daydream, I get these ideas coming out of me that are just like this thing I read, which is why you can read an author from another culture and get inspired by it. And some people get so inspired they learn the language, the native language of the author, so that they can better understand what they were talking about in a cultural context. So, getting back to what? See, I ain't no Daniel Schmucktenberger. These journeys, cosmopolon thought journeys, I'd like them to flow from me and what I'm experiencing, as opposed to trying to teach like other people do, and they're so good at it. And you can never, ever best them on it, so why try? Just point them in their direction and say, please, look at it. And for the rest of us, we can say, so now we're heading into Casais Brancos. So down through down the valley and up the hill. And boom. I mean, this is fast, because I had to go back and get my phone, and that didn't take me long at all. Pine and eucalyptus, I can't tell you, because this isn't scratch and sniff video, how incredible it smells on a day like today in September. A nice hot day. Ooh, it smells good. I think to be a sommelier, you have to be into smelling everything, so you can describe how the wine tastes. Me, I say, tastes good, tastes like wine. That's my problem, I'll admit it, which is why I stay away from it most of the time. I wish I could be one of these healthy people who like, yeah, I'd have a glass of wine with dinner every night. It's fantastic, yeah. It's good for you. There's resveratrol, and you know, it's got all these micronutrients, and alcohol chills you a little bit. It's always good to have a little bit every day. There's lots of evidence, lots of scientific papers about it, man. Which is why I do it, because I'm a badass healthy guy. No, it's because I like getting drunk on wine. And I like blabbermouthing with my friends. Yo. So, there you go, another off-kilter thing. You can't outdo the people who have a great deal of expertise in, okay, there's the sign, Casais Brancos. That's it. And then you go down this hill here, and you're in Obidos. So it's a huge shortcut from the other roads. Amazing. I'll shut off the can. So why was I talking about that? Because when we're younger, we may feel a lot of inadequacies, and so we feel insecure and we overcompensate by pretending to be better or smarter than we are. We're doing that because we're insecure, right? We feel inadequate. At the same time, we have these enormous expectations. You know, you got to go for the gold, even though you're not really at that level in the game. You're not an Olympic, you know, runner or hockey player. You're a normal person. But we've been trained in the United States, at least, to have these incredible expectations, high expectations. So if I can't make a film that looks like, you know, name a cool filmmaker, and touches people and, you know, gets millions of ticket sales and likes, I'm not going to make it, you know. I did that. I did poetry, I wrote things, and I just put them in boxes, and I left them. I didn't develop them because I thought they were crap. You know, why would I develop that? It's shit. Maybe they were shit. But maybe if I had worked on them a bit and put them out there over and over and over again, I might have developed into a good writer or whatever. Like my friend in California, San Francisco, he started an orchestra almost 25, 30 years ago, and it took him, you know, 20 years to get traction. But he loves it and he does it well, and bit by bit, you know, he's on the map with it. So you decide more or less sometime, I think I'd be good at this, and you stick to it for a long time and work hard at it, and bit by bit you get good results. But until then, if you're starting out, gotta redo my mic here. If you're starting out, it might be better to, if you're starting out, it might be better to lower your expectations quite a bit and focus on just getting it done, you know. Finish this, finish that project, finish this poem, finish that house, finish whatever it is you got to finish. Your resume. Don't have too high expectations for what you're going to accomplish or achieve. Just have this idea that you're going to work on it and make a habit of working on it. That sounds very self-help, but it's so damn true. And lower your expectations and get things done. And if it takes you 50 years to figure that out, wow. Well, it takes you 50 years. But wouldn't it be nice if you figured that out by the time you were like 20 or 25? Some people do. And they're the luckiest people on earth, because they don't have to beat themselves up all the time because they're not perfect. And they have several bodies of work, lots more experience, and they realistically understand what it takes to achieve something. Much has been said. Boy, oh boy, I'm a parrot. But everything you dabble in, delve into, you know, it can inform your choices, your decision-making ability, your discernment, your level of discernment, analysis, your confidence, your ability to communicate and connect with other people, different kinds of people. So you become someone who's broader, deeper, anti-fragile, more resilient, gets knocked down, stands back up again. And maybe then you can start to do some good work, you know. So if you're with people like that in a small community, and you recognize that this guy has the baking skills, and this guy has the carpentry skills, this guy is the electrician, and you have all that castle there. The castle could be collaborative, it could be communal, but you have it all, it's right there, and you say, I got the materials, I got the resources, the people, I'm gonna build that motherfucker. And when I build it, I'm gonna keep developing it over time. Growth mindset, cliche, cliche. And it's gonna get better. And you know, that's the thing that people who study learn, is that everything can always get better. It can progress, it can improve. And anyone who's driven a car over the last 50 years knows that, right? Come on, for God's sake. You had a phone, then you had another kind of phone. Now you got a smartphone, right? How are you holding up? It is, it's the best walk there is. So let's keep going, and then I'll go get the car. I'll show you where you walk down, and then I'll go get the car. I'll show you where you walk down, and then I'll go get the car. Because walking back's not a possibility. So if you're building your cage, and if you're active with the community and building the best cage there is, you're telling the leadership and the people with more resources than you have what you want. I want my cage to be like this, motherfucker. And if it's not, I'm gonna just say no to you and your leadership and your power and your resources. And likewise, if you make it up the ladder to the bubble, and you're talking to all the people who think they know everything already, because they made it into a really hot bubble. A really nice gated community where they're hanging out with only their kind of people. I like my kind of people, motherfucker. You ain't my kind of people. I don't like you. Leave it at that, okay? Get the fuck out of here. Whatever. They're in their bubble, and they're like, well, I'm comfortable, man. I make $275K a year, and you know, I'm well respected in the community, and I have everything I need. Why the hell? Whoa. I've got to take this. It's a Norwegian pine cabin. Nice little place, unusual in Portugal. So I'm talking about, yeah, so you have your castle, your bubble, and you're so proud of it, and you're so comfortable there. that you don't think it needs to improve much. Because look, if we change something, I might lose 10K a year. Or somebody won't respect me as much because they'll find somebody who can do what I do better. And that's a disaster to a person's ego when they've worked so hard for so long to get where they are, and they're proud of what they've accomplished. And they can look back and say their dad was in the army, and they can point to all these other reference points about why it is that they're so special. It wasn't a combination of hard work and good luck. It's really just like I'm special in the eyes of God Almighty. And it's a threat to change. You know, most people are scared to death you're going to mess with their fucking truck or their gun. That's the problem. You know, why are you saying I should change something? I'm really happy with the way things are. So in a bubble or a castle or a cage, you have people all thinking like that, except in really, really bad situations. And then they say, oh shit, this is a crisis, this is bad, I've got to change. I need to get out of the cage. I need to improve the bubble. The war has come. Oh, for fuck's sake, I'm in a cattle train. I'm dead now. Oh no, here's another schoolhouse. Oh my God. I like the way somebody made a statement. It wasn't here before, but you see, somebody made a statement. They put a little desk, wooden desk, and a chair out in front of the old schoolhouse. You see that? That's art. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put an old desk and that's beautiful, man. I got to take a picture. Meh. How are you, blood? Good to see you again. This is a sheep. I know pretty well. I know some people might beg to differ and say I don't really know that sheep as well as I say I know that sheep. That's a statement. Oh no. Hold on. I like that. Hello, buddy. How are you? Come on over. Come on over, buddy. They never know if you're here to feed them or do something else. Come on. Come over. Come here. Hey, goat buddies, how are you? You can come over, but you can't eat me. You can't eat my stuff. You guys just jump right over the fence. You got no fear. You're so good at running and jumping. You trip me out, man. Every time I talk to these goats and they run back and they jump, I'm like, why can't people do that? Well, some people jump pretty good. But wouldn't it be good if you're like, just out of the gate, you're like that kind of an athlete? Broham, don't be shy. Hey, goat, come here. The goats just ran back and jumped over the fence. The goats ran back and jumped over the fence. It was awesome. They're so athletic. Super athletes. So, check that out, will ya? And that's the problem. Comfort, prestige, money. That's why the politicians don't give a flying fuck about anybody. They care about the people in their in-group, and they care about their prestige and their position. They're never ever going to do what you want them to do. So you have to say no to them, to their money, to their power. There's the castle over there. You see? Amazing, isn't it? And just keep going down here. How are you holding up? So,
They don't give a flying fuck. It doesn't matter who's in office, man. If you don't push them, people hate Jimmy Dore, that's fine. Most people listening probably don't know who he is. It doesn't matter. He's a YouTube political commentator slash comedian, social critic, whatever. But many people have pointed this out, including old timers like Ralph Nader. You know, if you don't push your leaders to do what you want, you're not in a democracy. A democracy is a place where you participate ceaselessly, endlessly, fervently, passionately to advocate for your rights, your needs, and everybody else that you're concerned about. You never, ever, ever, ever. I'm going to turn off the cam for a bit. Well, you never, ever, ever let up, because the minute you let up, the special interests, the powerful people come in and say, I've got your back, I'll take care of you, here's an extra $100. Just make sure my drug gets approved or whatever. And then you're screwed. You're not living a democracy. A democracy has to be lived. It's not just an institution or an idea. You have to actively do it. Straight down there, and you'll walk down into that valley and off towards the castle. You can't miss it. Down this road. I'll go get the car. So now I'm going the other way, back to get the car, because it'll be hard to walk back from Obidos. That's a long walk. It's a good walk. But there are a couple big hills, and it's just too much. So I'll get the car, do some shopping at the Continent grocery store, and run a couple errands. But what a beautiful morning out. Hello, kids. Where are you? Hola. They're in the shade. So I, after all the books that have been written by all the brilliant people over hundreds of years, thousands of years, people still don't get that democracy is an active thing. It's something that you do, that you constantly fight for. And it's complicated. It encompasses so many things. And so you don't live in a perfect democracy. It's never perfect, which goes back to this things have to improve type of thing, or they can. If you're a conservative, and conservatively you think the 1967 Ford Mustang convertible was the best car ever made, you might still like the 2020 Dodge Ram Charger and be able to admit that they've made some improvements. But improvements aren't just technocratic things. You know, it can be spiritual, it can be emotional, it can be ideological, it can be institutional, psychological, and so on and so forth. I think the technocrats think that if they have more power and more control, they can put chips in everybody and direct them like marionettes and make them do the right things. Then the world will be safe for technocracy and for the powerful players. You know, no more dangerous masses to, you know, that's what democracy is always afraid of, and that's why Nixon was afraid and so on. So much has been said and written. Democracy, people are scary, the mob is scary. You know, I just want to continue doing what I'm doing, running the hacienda or the plantation, and, you know, being good to my people and not fuck everything up with all this bullshit about change. And how do you convince somebody like that, a plantation owner, that they should give up slavery? Well, you have a civil war. But just because that happens doesn't mean that's the only thing that one has to do is have a fucking war. I mean, whatever's going on between China and the United States right now, it's totally bullshit. There's no player in the world that wants a war. They're just playing it up for their own competitive purposes. Because the players are global, man. And this is not a conspiracy. This is just the way the system's engineered and designed and has been developed. And if you want to change that, change that. But that's the way it is. So if you think the global players, and they could be anybody, are going to give up their advantage just for you, for some goofy, social justice thing, they're not going to do it. They'll do it if it benefits them and their shareholders. That's the way global neoliberal capitalism is designed and set up and engineered at the moment. It could be different. It could be configured in a myriad of ways. But that's the way it is now. So they're going to pay you off with bread and circuses and concepts like tax cuts. But you're not really going to gain anything from that. You're not going to get anything from that. Those tax cuts aren't going to help you much. By far, what would help everybody much, much more is taking their curiosity and exercising it on a deep and wide level, continually learning, evolving, growing, understanding themselves better, their society better, how politics works better, how to build the castle better, and so on and so forth. You have to instill this into children at a young age. Even though my parents didn't bend my arm, they supported me. And I had a great deal of freedom to experiment and do what I liked. And I had enough love, and food and shelter. So I'm a very lucky man. But nurturing my own curiosity and desire to grow and learn and develop, nobody gave me that. I didn't have a big brother type mentor or a spiritual guru to guide me through any of this. I just did it on my own by accident. I don't know why. And I don't think I'm a great result. I don't think I'm a model citizen or a model person. I'm not a stoic sage. I'm just happy with what I get out of the experience of life. And I am one of these people like Schmucktenberger who is trying to make things better. And there are lots of people doing that in different ways. And the Game B thing is like people are figuring out what they can do, what they have the ability to do, and then pitch in. Everybody argues about the minutiae, but things have to get done. So I like the idea of, barn raising and so on. It's like, well, we need a barn, so we got to build one. So we're going to need some resources for that. So let's get together and get that done, okay? It's not rocket science. We don't have to debate whether it's a conservative barn or a liberal barn or a postmodernist barn or a social justice barn or a cancel culture barn or it, they, we, she, me, he barn or any other kind of barn. A rock and roll barn, a rap barn. We just need a fucking barn that we can store stuff in and put some animals in and whatever. And you say, Good enough for me, brother. Let's do that thing. By the way, I think you cheated on the horseshoes last time, but I still love you. Imagine all the energy that goes into social media and all these peeves on Twitter. And I mean, God help us. And people really get emotional, man, and they have bad days. The other day I was driving slowly. I was in the fast lane for a bit, and I finally got over, and the person honked at me and shook their fist. And I realized I'm not at all responsible for that person's bad day. Not at all. And I'm only responsible for how I react to that person having a bad day, and whether I'm going to beat myself up about having been in the fast lane too long. Or I'm going to say, best not do that again. People don't like it. And mind my driving. It's not hard. So I can't believe the mainstream media anymore. I started going off of it in 2005, around then. And it's over now. I mean, it's all bought and paid for propaganda messaging. Obviously, you can read the New York Times or the New Yorker or the Guardian or whatever, Breitbart, and get information about the shit show. Some guy was stabbed in London and whatnot. There's a tsunami and a forest fire caused by fireworks at a gender outing. And maybe you need to know that stuff because you want to know what's going on in the world. You can get it and then leave it off. The commentary, the pundits, the op-eds, most of it's crap. And so I go to authors and books and primary sources of ancient wisdom and knowledge. And I listen to alternative media where people are spending time delving into subjects more sincerely and earnestly, and where I can tell their heart's in the right place, and they're not doing it just for their career or their position or the money. And you know, I don't agree with everything Jay on a Bike says about coronavirus. I still haven't sorted it out yet. Some people think that they have the answer now. I'm still provisional in my understanding of the whole event so far. But I've gotten a great deal from that guy since January, and the Big House guy and other people. And it helped me grapple with and kind of enjoy the whole fucking shit show of COVID-19. And there are other people, Chris Martenson and so many others in Twitter and whatnot. And I didn't know that much about epidemiology and virology and all that stuff before this happened. So it's been an opportunity for me to learn something. And that's what I like about it. Of course, I don't want to die on my bicycle or of the flu or heart disease or anything else, getting my hip replacement under anesthesia. But it's like, it really did pull the mask off of the whole bullshit system we live in that I've thought was crap for decades. And if you can't see it now, you'll never see it. Because the way the information around this pandemic has been handled is terrible. It's bad. Bad science, bad journalism, bad governance, bad everything. I mean, fucking hell. And it's still bad. And who knows when the veils will be, the layers will be peeled back, and we'll understand how many years is it going to be. And then several people will publish books about it, and they'll be meticulously researched, some of them very well written and entertaining. And we'll learn everything that happened, all about the pandemic of COVID-19. And it won't matter because who's gonna read that shit? Because there'll be another fucking thing sapping all of our attention and tapping into our fear and our limbic brains and our panic and making us want to click up with rivalrous tribes to go to war. There'll be another motherfucking thing in 5 years. And in 10 years, there'll be another motherfucking thing. And it'll be all this noise just fucking with us. And then they, in other words, people with power who want more control, and what else would they want if they love power and they already have $1 billion, will tell you and me how to live, how to think, where we can fucking go, what we can fucking do, what we can read and think. I mean, journalism has been totally co-opted and hijacked and captured by big money. I mean, Bezos owns the Washington Post, for God's sake. And I'm not saying he's the editorial guy there, but they have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation does have an influence on everything because they got a lot of money. They can pay for studies. This study, not that study. No, we're not going to do a proper study of hydroxychloroquine. A proper study. No, we're not going to finance that, even though it would cost the equivalent of a breakfast bagel to the foundation. They're going to, pay for studies that go against cheap outpatient treatment for a virus, not even the disease. Once you get into the disease state and you're in a hospital, math and other things kick in. And we now have various treatments that can help people. But if you're 80, my grandfather died of pneumonia. That was probably kicked off by a cold or a flu, rhinovirus, coronavirus, flu virus, whatever. But they're not going to pay for that because it doesn't give them more power and control. I don't know why people can't understand that. It's so simple, it's so obvious. But they're worshipped like heroes. I create a problem and I create the fix for the problem. And you worship me and I tell you how to live, when you can travel to visit your friend in Portugal and when you have to stay home. All right, the bike is back, the car is there. I'm going to shut everything off. Talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.